Hi there, welcome to another episode of Cocktail Conversations with me and Nigel again. Today, first of all, we're at the beautiful and tropical Blue Parrot restaurant, and they've provided us with some fabulous summery drinks. This is the G&G, the gin and grapefruit, which is so beautifully matching our magazine today. So let's cheers and then let's get into our episode.
Cheers, Mika. This is a pretty big cocktail, so hopefully we've got lots to talk about. So, well, let's have a sip. Oh, I can see why it's their signature drink. It's sensational. Can I start?
Yeah, sure.
I want to ask you about the cover and the theme of the issue. And also, has this got anything to do with that?
Well, I just kind of wanted to match our beautiful cover just for fun. And it's kind of a little silly because it's such a juxtaposition to where we are right now. In case you don't know, we're filming in Bangkok in the middle of summer. But yeah, I just wanted to have a little bit more fun. And given that the theme of our issue, which we'll get into shortly, is sort of based around a Japanese concept, I just kind of wanted to play it up for today.
Well done. So the Ikigai concept. Now, most magazines have a theme. Every issue has a theme. We're only quarterly, so we can be a bit more selective. Going back to my very first days in the magazine industry, there was always a watch issue or a woman's issue or a travel issue, and I always found it a little bit, it kind of worked 40 years ago, 30 years ago, but in the last few years it hasn't worked at all, and it's kind of forced and it doesn't work. So we came up with a theme which is more of a kind of a general overview. Tell us about the Ikigai theme and how you managed to bring this magazine together.
Right, so first of all, I want to give a little credit to my co-host here. He's actually the one who came up with this theme, even though it's Japanese. But yeah, I think Ikigai lately in the last few years has become sort of ubiquitous and sort of transcend the Japanese language, has entered into the English language. It basically means your purpose for living or your reason for being. Why it is you do the things that you do every day, like what inspires you to do those things, your driving force. So I think this is to credit you, is a great concept because I think it's universal enough that you can approach people working in different industries and be able to ask them, like, what makes you wake up every day and do this, right? So it's very versatile. They could go into each one of our lifestyle sections in the magazine.
Yeah, and I think it's important at the moment. There's so many there's some dreadful things going on around the world. And you somehow can get depressed by everything. And so you really do need a reason to get up out of bed and live and something to look forward to each day and a real purpose. And we talked about that, I think, in our very first issue that, I think every magazine or every media brand needs to have a purpose. And so here we are talking about purposes, and I think it's worked. But so how did you, in shaping the stories that went into this magazine, how did you select them? And is there a particular favorite or two that you felt really fitted the Ikigai kind of concept?
Right, so how we sort of direct our writers when we have a theme like Ikigai is when you do your story, try to get to the bottom of what is this, if it's a company, if it's a person that we're covering, what is this company, product, or person's, motivating force? Like, with everything aside, maybe even business aside, what is like the core value of what you're doing? And so I think that worked really well, and that also, to sort of pun it up, gave the writers a sense of purpose when they interview, because they know they have to hit this punchline when they ask someone like, okay, we're interviewing you, we're covering what it is you do, but like, why, at the end of the day, why is this your life? Why did you choose this? Why do you choose to stay in it, right? So I think that was a cool assignment for the writers, and I think it's also quite fun to have that little directive when you're going out and producing these stories. To answer your other question, what is one of my favorite stories in here? I quite enjoyed the story on Thai chocolates. I did know that there are some artisanal chocolate brands in Thailand that have been becoming more well-known in the last few years, but I feel like this story really opened up my eyes to see like how driven, how passionate these Thai chocolatiers are, and how much they really want to showcase not just Thai cacao but also Thai ingredients to mix into the cacao. And it's a kind of 360 thing. It's not just the cacao, it's also the packaging, it's also how do we source all these ingredients, how do we get them to the supermarket. I just find it a sort of very holistic view of how do we make something better, you know, because like the author says in the story, when you think of high-end chocolate or world-renowned chocolate, you kind of tend to think of European brands. But when you read this story, you realize like these Thai chocolatiers, they actually have a lot of heart in what they're doing, and they're really trying to make this a quality product. So I was quite enlightened by that story.
Okay. Okay. Can I tell you what mine was?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to ask you.
No,
What's
it's
yours?
okay. It was a photo essay, I think, which is a bit surprising because it's a very stark essay comparing kind of street life in Bangkok with a city in, Tokyo, is it? I don't know the photographer, and you'd kind of almost think that can't really be an exhibition of photographs or a book because it's just so not a usual pairing of juxtaposition of situations, but it works really well as a photo essay. And it stands out in a magazine like this because you kind of look at it and then you start to think about it, and you kind of get a feel for the lives of the people that he's photographed. So I thought that was awesome.
Oh, that makes me happy because that was a story that I sort of helped put together.
Okay.
And it's really visually striking. And again, I like to tie in a little bit of Japanese with the issue. It just kind of comes naturally when you hear the word Ikigai and it's Japanese. Like my brain sort of just thinks of all these Japanese things first. Like I can't help it.
You think Japanese before you think Thai, do you, or English?
Well, like when you hear the word, it's so
You have to,
Japanese
right?
that I kind of like my brain kind of just reaches out to things that are sort of within reach that are Japanese.
Right.
One of the things included, which I want to talk about, is the cover, of course.
Oh yeah.
So with our cocktail covers, I think you can notice that we don't go the traditional route of photographing people for the cover, which is very like a traditional, way to sell magazines, right?
Well, it's a traditional way in Thailand, certainly, and elsewhere, to get revenue for a publication company, for a magazine. Right?
Yeah, but I mean, we really aim to be ambitious here. So we've sort of decided from the beginning that we're going to approach artists for each issue to illustrate the cover. And again, with Ikigai, when I hear it, it's like Japanese, but also for Koktail, I kind of want to reach out to Thai artists and showcase Thai artists because one, we're based in Bangkok, Thailand, so they're within reach, but two, I also think that given that our audience is not just in Thailand, but also people abroad, I do think that it's cool to introduce them to such talented artists who can stand on their own on the international level.
Yeah.
And it was just so opportune. I couldn't think of anyone else to do our Ikigai issue than Thai, Japanese, American artist Luke Satoru, who, a little bit about Luke, he's a tattoo artist based in Bangkok. And he did our cover. I think it's perfect because it's another Thai artist, but he has a sort of deep understanding of the word Ikigai as well. So it's very easy to pitch to him this, like, could you do something for us for this issue? And honestly, I wouldn't take no for an answer because I just felt that this is the artist we need for this issue. But fortunately, he was very easy as well.
So we have the original art here. So even though we're not selling our covers, which it really is unusual in Thailand. Pretty much every other magazine, that, especially in the lifestyle sector, they sell their covers for quite a lot of money to a wannabe high society type person. So trying to get away from that is quite difficult in the context of time. In fact, we do have a sneaky plan to commercialize these at some stage with the artist's permission, but we don't know quite what that sneaky plan is yet. And when we get round to it, if someone can explain to us NFTs properly maybe, or we've got enough covers to open up an art exhibition. But we do feel that we're going to create some value with these beautiful covers over time. Talking about magazines in general, there's a little bit of a feedback I got from a couple of potential clients out there in Bangkok saying, we really love Koktail, we really love reading it, but it's not a luxury magazine. and our brand is a luxury brand. We need to be advertising in a luxury magazine. Have you got any feedback like that? Probably not as the editor, right? They probably wouldn't dare say that to you, but just seems to me that's counterintuitive, and but we are creating a magazine that's incredibly readable, intellectual, to some degree, with a real diversity of viewpoints in it. It's really on the message, which is so kind of current and pertinent today, of responsible, consumerism, responsible luxury, if you like, which these brands are also being forced to practice. And yet one or two of the brand managers or country managers saying to me, yeah, we love the magazine, it's the only one we read. But, I think our head office only wants to advertise in a lifestyle magazine. Fair criticism, or do you think they've got it wrong?
I mean, I can understand the difficulty. It's always a risk to change, right? It's always a risk to break the mold, do something that's out of tradition, and that's the risk we've taken with Koktail.
Yeah.
And so I can understand people's apprehension, or like these brands' apprehension to join us in our vision, because it is very new, and it is kind of unproven, right? Because there's like this security of like advertising in your standard, maybe like luxury glossy page magazine.
Right.
So, I mean, I think it takes time, it takes convincing, it takes the right people to understand and take a risk with us, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, one anecdote I have, the publisher shall remain nameless, but I was talking to someone who was telling me, we need to print more pages. We need to print 250 pages in every market we're in Thailand, or in Asia, and that includes Thailand. And I was saying, why do you need to do that? Oh, we have to. And if you have to cut the print run to be able to afford to do it. So we're definitely not going down those roads, are we? And we're saying there's enough content in here for a 2 or 3 hour read, for sure. A lot of diversity in the stories. And we're getting the magazine out to the audience we're claiming to get it out to. And I think, and I also don't really agree, because if you look at a magazine like Monocle, which is kind of similar in a way, but it's a lot more travel oriented and global. But again, it's not kind of luxury lifestyle magazine, but you can see all the contemporary brands advertising with them. They've been really true to what they've been doing as well. So I think, it's just that a couple of people said it, I shouldn't really probably raise it in a discussion like this, but I just found it an interesting thing from a media perspective. I also have another question. I read the story on that we've got this wonderful story on people that are trying to help dogs in Thailand, stray dogs. There's we've got a really good headline, the land of 1,000 strays or something. It's a real issue here. Poor dogs everywhere. They're not neutered or spayed or whatever you do, to neuter dogs. And these guys they're often injured in roadside, sort of, they're really roadkill almost, and it's really sad. But there's so many wonderful people trying to do something about it. And I read that and thought, Jesus, why do they do this? Did you find out why they do this when your writer interviewed this? And the last question I have on that is, do we kind of tell people how you can help these organizations to get the funds they need? Is there any way we can help more?
Yeah, so all the stories that are in print will eventually go onto our cocktailmagazine.com website. So you should definitely follow both print and online, a little plug there. But definitely when this story goes online, we'll definitely put the links of where you can donate to these wonderful people doing this wonderful work. But to answer your question, they just can't turn away when they see an animal in need, and also it's kind of like that one blip in your life, right? Like you have this chance to help this animal or not. When you look back on it, it's kind of nothing on your end. So as a human being, like, why would you not do it?
I think it's a really good story. Then we really highlighted some of the phenomenal work that these people are doing and their supporters are doing. I also want to talk a little tiny bit about the Glamping Story. Beautifully written. One of my favorite writers again.
Joe.
Yeah.
Shout out to Joe.
I'm not sure if if he's a glamper, but he really wrote well about this. It kind of fits to me what the TAT or sort of the tourist we've done with kind of visiting beautiful big hotels in the on the beach.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with those if that's your first time experience, but it seem so much fun to get immersed in nature and if you can afford a bit, you don't even have to be in a luxurious tent, but if you can afford it, there's no problem with that, right?
Yeah.
Get in that tent and have someone bring you in these beautiful G&Gs,
Yeah.
But that really should get people thinking about glamping. What do you think?
Yeah, I think glamping is, in a way, kind of accessible in the sense that you don't have to be super rugged and roughing it out, because that's not everyone's cup of tea, right? To
No.
like rug it out with,
No.
making like Survivor style, like making
Yeah.
fire on your own and pitching your own tent. So it's kind of this mix of, you have comforts, you have luxury, but you are really close to nature, like much closer than being in a hotel room, in a 5-star hotel where you check into the lobby. You
Yeah.
like are immersed in nature, but you still have that sense of comfort. So I think it's very accessible to people, and it's no wonder that it's really picked up in Thailand, especially during the pandemic when you can't leave.
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
really made people sort of rediscover what they can do within their own country.
Yeah. So hopefully buy Koktail if you're watching this, or wait for it to come out online, and go glamping in Thailand. Also, there's a beautiful guided walk tour description
Oh, yes.
of a talk around old China. Is it part of Chinatown and part of an area that's got roots going back 200 or 300 years.
Many stories in Koktail, we sort of want the writer to do what they're passionate about. And this particular writer is really passionate about this community he grew up around. Just to be a little bit more specific, the community is Samsen, like Grungton Bridge, Dusit area. And what's interesting about this area is you have so many little ethnic groups, little cultural communities that coexist right next to each other.
Yeah.
And they're all quite old too. They've been around Thailand for so long, they've been next to each other for so long, but they kind of coexist in harmony with each other. It's
Right.
not conflicting, even though you might have a Christian community next to Buddhist community. So I really like this story, and like you said, he sort of provided a little walking trail that you could follow his journey. And at the end of the story, we also have a visual map just to make it more easy, because if you're like me and I read directions like north, south, I'm gonna get confused. So we have this little map that you can follow along and see like, okay, this is where he walked and that's what he saw and stuff like that.
Yeah, okay. Well, we've probably talked about a good, actually not even 25% of the articles
Yeah.
in there. I was going to say, we've talked about everything. We haven't. There's much, much more in there. So please do buy the magazine, or you can download it on Flipsnack as well for free. This is Cocktail Conversations, was an idea we had to just talk about each issue. We used to do it with another magazine called Turning the Pages, and it used to be 2 or 3 minutes of chatting. But we felt it might be interesting to some people to learn a little bit about more thinking that goes into the magazine. And we've kind of pushed it on a bit now, and are doing the Cocktail Conversation podcast and video cast. And they're starting to catch on. We've had an interview with Deepak from Labur, where he talked about management skills needed to run fine dining and tourism-based gourmet, with Philip, who talked about the mise of the Scala, but not only that, also the kind of lack of care about history and beautiful old buildings and so on. Really interesting discussion with him. And then with Bill Bensley, kind of Mr. Creativity, beautiful Jack Russell dogs, and we've got more lined up. I mean, people wanting to chat to us. So this is an interesting diversion from our original. We didn't think we would do that.
Yeah, honestly, we just thought it'd be us two getting a cocktail every month, but it just expanded to having these really interesting guests.
Yeah.
And honestly, I guess this is sort of an open call, but we're keen to cover a wide variety of topics.
Yeah, and we
on
want
this.
more cocktails, essentially.
Yeah, we want more cocktails. So
Yeah,
if you're a bar or a venue.
Well, I mean, I thought we wouldn't have much to talk about, but I think we've been chatting for more than 5 or 10 minutes. I'm not sure. So, anything else to say today, or do you think we can wrap it up now?
I think we can wrap it up. Just to reiterate, you can buy our Cocktail Magazine Issue 2, the Ikigai Issue, is out now. You can buy them in Asia Books as well as Kinokuniya. And please stay tuned online for additional content beyond the magazine.
And another plug for the beautiful Blue Parrot. They have a petanque court here if you're French or you want to pretend to be French. You can play that wonderful game. It's apparently filled with delightful children at the weekend, swimming and having fun with their family. And in the evening, it turns into a really kind of meaningful, fun, downtown, funky, middle of the city drinks venue with some great food too. So thanks to the Blue Parrot, wherever you guys are, for hosting us, and everybody come and have a drink here.
All right, we'll see you next time. Bye.